mindfulness. It's a way of using the five senses to connect with the present moment through the body. I've always thought of the body as being the doorway into the present moment. So to the extent that you can engage your experience, particularly through those five senses, you're really able to move into that present moment experience. And so today I'm going to use a dried apricot right here. And what we're going to do is just sequentially go through all five senses and just pay close attention to what you're experiencing as you're doing each of the five senses. Now this exercise can be done quickly, it can be done slowly. Traditionally, mindful eating is done very slowly because it's done with intention. But in the kind of world that we live, we have to be able to learn how to practice doing things at every speed. So if you're fortunate enough to have the opportunity to do your mindful eating exercise slowly and at leisure, that's great. But also learning how to do it quickly is important as well. And so let's start our mindful eating with just focusing in on looking at the dried apricot. We'll do one sense at a time. Just engaging that one sense, that sense of sight. And then moving on to the sense of touch, just touching the dried apricot. And I find that it's helpful not to look at the apricot when you're doing the sense of touch. It helps to isolate that sense. And just paying close attention to what it feels like. Also noticing from time to time that your attention is going to wander, and just bringing the attention back to that sense of touch with the dried apricot. And next we move on to the sense of hearing, and I know that that can be a little bit of a challenge with a dried apricot, but we just want to engage the hearing in any way that we can. And it's sufficient just to rub your finger up against the apricot or just kind of squeeze it together and get that mushy sound, just engaging that sense of hearing in whatever way you can. Use your imagination. And then finally engaging the sense of smell. Actually, not finally, there's one more after smell. So let's move on to the sense of smell. And just smelling the apricot. Bringing the attention back to the sense of smell, noticing when your attention wanders, and making that part of your practice though. You want to include everything in your mindfulness practice. And then finally now moving on to the sense of taste, and just letting the dried apricot sit in your mouth for a few moments, and then chewing it up and fully tasting the apricot. And so that's basically your mindful eating exercise. And as I mentioned earlier, if you're able to do this at your leisure and kind of stretch out the time that you're doing mindful eating, that's great. But in the end, you need to learn how to eat mindfully at any speed. So whether it's slow, medium, or fast, Practice your mindful eating. It's a fun and enjoyable way of doing your mindfulness practice.